So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Napoleon Total War online commentary video. This is my third video for the YouTube channel. Thanks again to all of you for your kind support and for your viewership. I really appreciate it. This channel's small, and this is, again, a side hobby that I really enjoy doing. Like I mentioned before, I absolutely love this game. I also love playing Prussia. If you notice, this is the third video now on the channel. And every army that I've brought to the battlefield is Prussia. Don't know why, I just really enjoy the units. Maybe I'll jump into another battle. In fact, I do have other battles saved where I play other factions. But you know, Prussia's such a versatile faction to play with. And look at this general here. This is the reason why I play as Prussia, for that lovely plume that our general has on top of his hat. You are looking at, ladies and gentlemen, the finest dressed man in all of Prussia. So welcome back to another Napoleon Total War online commentary video. We are playing today on the Lodi map, and I am in command, as you can see, of the Prussians. My ally Chris is in command of the Austrians. We are playing against H. Valkova, who is commanding the armies of France, and Razumzar, who is also commanding the armies of Prussia. So we got a little Prussian Civil War going on here today. So this is going to be very interesting and a little bit confusing for us on the battlefield. So I'm going to try and do my best not to confuse you, and also not try and get confused myself as well. This battle gets started off pretty quickly here, so we're going to go through the armies bit by bit, and we're going to dive into the unit compositions before we get started with the battle. So like I said before, I am bringing with me to the field today another Prussian army. I have brought with me 1 unit of general staff, 3 units of Jaegers, 2 units of foot guards. Those are our elite infantry units, and they are set up. There they are. Look at these guys. Aren't they amazing looking? Oh, they also are taking after the general. They've got these pretty gorgeous plumes. God, I love this game, man. I love this game. We have 7 units of Musketeers, which is the basic line infantry unit for the Prussian army. We have 3 units of Lancer Cav. There they are, right there. And we have 2 units of 6-pounder horse artillery. Like I mentioned before in one of our other battles, horse artillery is really good to bring to the battlefield because they can get to positions faster and get into action quicker than your typical fixed artillery, which is also horse-drawn, but these guys have a team of 4 horses versus a team of 2 horses. I don't know how much of a difference that really makes in real life, but it's a game, you know, you got to have fun with it. So that is my army. Let's take a look over here at the other side of the battlefield, and we'll dive into the topographic makeup of this battlefield here shortly. But this is the army that Chris has brought to the battlefield. Chris is playing as the Austrians, and he has a massive army with him today, folks. He's got 1 unit of general staff. He's back here leading the charge from the rear. He's got 2 units of Landschützen, which are a unit of skirmishers. There they are. Oh, actually, those are Grenzers. Okay, so we've lost the Landschützen. We'll find them again. We have 2 units of Grenzers. There they are, right there. They're hidden right now in the road. We've got 1 unit of 1st Regiment Emperor's Own. They are an elite infantry unit of Austria. There they are right there, 1st Regiment of the Emperor's Own. Take a look at their uniforms, that sleek white uniform. God, I love it. I love the uniforms in this game. We've got 1 unit of Archduke Charles Legion. Those guys are the fancy ones with the blue pants. There they are, back here in the back. So we got 1 unit of Archduke Charles Legion with the fancy blue pants. We have 6 units of German Fusiliers, 6 regiments of German Fusiliers. That is the typical makeup of the Austrian army. And 1 unit of Hungarian Fusiliers. He's got 2 units of Dragoons with him that he's brought to the battlefield. Dragoons are a heavy cavalry unit. There they are. Look at those helmets, man. He's got with him 1 unit of the 1st Hussars. These guys are a light shock cavalry unit, and they have some gorgeous looking dark blue uniforms, very intimidating to bring with you on the battlefield. And 2 units of Lancer Cav, the Uhlans. So they have some pretty nasty spears. Also a shock cavalry that they are very good at hit and runs against the enemy. He's brought with him 1 unit of 7-pounder howitzers. Those are a unit of fixed artillery, and they are back here somewhere. There they are. They are back here somewhere in the back. And he's got one unit of the 12-pounder foot artillery. So these guys have very effective range on the battlefield, very intimidating to bring with you to a fight. We'll go ahead and take a look over at our opponent's armies. We're first going to take a look at H. Val Kova's army. He has commanded the armies of France with him today. And he's got one... Okay, so this is very interesting. Most armies bring a general staff unit to the battlefield, and I actually didn't notice this until I looked back on the replay, but he brought with him to the battlefield a general's unit of dragoons. Didn't know you could do that, but I guess you can throw your general into a regular cavalry unit, so that's pretty cool to see. So H. Valkova has his general mixed in with the dragoons. He's got 2 units of fusiliers of the line. That is, again, that is your typical line infantry unit for the French army. There they are right there. He's got with him 3 units of National Guard, which are kind of like a militia unit. They're not very good, but they're guys with muskets, and they account for numbers on the battlefield. So those guys are always fun to see brought to the battlefield because, again, they're not very good, but it's always cool to see them because of those tricorn or bicorn hats. He brought with him 1 unit of militia. He's got with him on the battlefield 1 unit of grenadiers of the line, which are these guys right here. The old guard actually came from the grenadier battalions of France. So these guys are very intimidating. Speaking of the old guard, he brought with him 1 regiment of the old guard, those beaver pelt hats. These guys were Napoleon's own bodyguard. These guys are very intimidating, some of the most elite units that the French faction can bring in Napoleon Total War. They were the most elite unit in Napoleon's army in real life. He's brought with him 1 unit of young guard, so not old enough to be in the old guard, but they're young enough to be in the young guard. So we got with him 1 unit of young guard here, also very elite unit. He brought with him 2 units of rocket troops. These guys we saw in action in the previous engagement that you will see up on my channel. And he brought with him 2 units of Cheval Léger Lancers. These guys are also a shock cavalry unit as well. Oh, he brought with him 2 units of Cheval Léger Lancers, which are a hit and run kind of unit for the French army. So that is the French army. We'll go take a look at the Prussian army, and we have a very special guest with us today, General Gebhard von Blücher, can't remember his name, but this guy is significant because let's take a look at him. There he is, Blücher himself, and it's actually a very good depiction of him. Blücher was the Prussian general that saved General Wellington at the Battle of Waterloo and aided Wellington and the coalition forces in the defeat of Napoleon at Waterloo. So it's always really cool to see a historical general brought to the battlefield. It's very rare that you see that. There really is no difference between historical generals and regular general staff, but it's always cool. It increases the immersion, so that's always fun. He's brought with him 2 units of hussars to the battlefield as well. He's brought with him 1 unit of Lützow's Freikorps, which is another shock cavalry unit, a very elite unit to bring to the battlefield. He's brought with him 1 unit of hussar. I think I already mentioned that. So he's got 3 hussars in total, and he's got 7 units of Prussian Musketeers. These guys, again, the basic makeup of the Prussian army, and he's brought with him nearly 5 units of Prussian Jaegers. So these guys have very effective range. They are a very lethal light infantry unit to be brought to the battlefield. They have greater range than that of your traditional line infantry, so those are always really good to get the drop on your opponent early, especially in an open battlefield like this. And he's brought with him 2 units of 12-pounder foot artillery units, very menacing artillery units to bring to the battlefield. So going up against those was a hefty challenge indeed. Let's take a look before we get started here at the topography of this map. Like I mentioned before, we'll maximize the mini-map. So we have here, and we'll just to kind of get our bearings a little bit, we're going to go all the way back to my side of the battlefield. Right over here, I am separated from the rest of the battlefield with a river dividing us. In between myself and my ally, along with the enemy, I have, like I mentioned before, the river in between and also a town in the middle. You will notice here a position of high ground, piece of elevated terrain. Words are hard today. We've got some highly elevated terrain here on this map, a huge hill which has a dominating presence on this battlefield in every which direction. This is a very critical hill to take when you're playing on this map. And like I mentioned before, whoever is in command of the high ground element of warfare, it provides you an element of control over the battle. So this is always a very coveted position to have, and both sides, my ally Austria way down on the far left and France on the far right, have started near towards. So we're going to see who is going to be king of this hill. Is it going to be Austria or is it going to be France? So this hill is always very highly fought over, and the reason being is that if you can get your artillery positioned up on here, then you have a very clear shot at, say, the Prussian army off in the distance here. See, they are off in the distance way far out there, but if you position your artillery up in a good spot up here, you have a clear shot in any which direction. So we're going to go ahead and get this battle started here. This battle gets started very quickly, so I want to be sure that you guys get to see everything that goes on. Keep in mind the rocket troops have some very effective range over the battlefield. In fact, I think they have range at almost any point. So no matter where our guys hide, rockets will always be able to get to. So I communicated with my Austrian ally that we need to take this position. It's critical that we have control over this hill. So he is going to go in for a mad dash up to the top of this hill, and we'll see if France answers in response with their rockets and if they're going to push up towards this hill. We can see that they're getting positioned, they're getting lined up, and here we go. The first shots of the battle have begun. And there go the rockets. We're going to follow their trail all the way up over this hill. And they miss. Oh, they're going for the artillery. All right, so the battle is now underway. My Austrian ally has done a very good job in pushing his cavalry up this hill, and France is not doing anything, engaging in any action to take this hill. He is going to sit here just beneath the side of the hill and pepper the Austrians as they are charging up, pushing up the side of this hill with all of his army. Might be a good strategy, because if you're running up this hill, which is what he's doing with practically his entire army, they're going to get tired very quickly. So the element of, I guess, of time is on the side of the French as the Austrians exhaust themselves pushing up this hill. But immediately Austria notices the blunder of the French by not taking this hill, so he is going to begin kiting the French forces by moving his cavalry off to the extreme right in order to intimidate the French and to force him either into an action or to push him off of this hill. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to see what France does with that. Now, way off in the distance here, like I mentioned before, I start off at the very far back of the map, so it's going to take me a while to get my forces online. As you can see, I am dealing with 2 river crossings trying to get my army across. The water is going to slow a lot of my men down, so for a while it is going to be Austria's game in establishing a commanding presence on the battlefield. We'll go ahead and take a look at what our Prussian enemy is up to. He is going to have, again, the luxury of time on his side and setting up a defensive position in this wide open field. So if France pushes up the hill and Prussia holds down here on the center field, then it is going to be a very interesting battle. But France is not really making any moves to take command of this hill. Instead, he is going to converge along with his Prussian ally, and he's going to hold down here in the center of the battlefield. I'm not entirely sure if that is a good decision. In fact, he is going to begin maneuvering his entire army off of this hill. A very critical decision in terms of battlefield tactics. I don't know if it is the wisest decision. One thing to know is that these rockets are fixed artillery. They cannot move once when you deploy them. So if he wants to have any sort of intimidating presence by taking this hill, then he really wants to protect his rocket troops from exposure. And he is not only dispatching his line infantry, but also his cavalry units as well. Yes, this is his general, but he also has 1 more unit of Chevalier Lancers up here. He's leaving his artillery units completely unprotected, which would leave my Austrian allies' cavalry really available at their luxury to take out this artillery without having any element of resistance, which is what he is going to do here. He is going to dispatch 1 unit of dragoons to take care of this rocket troop and silence them from doing any further damage to the Austrian forces as they're getting themselves established really in a gorgeous position, really critical position up on top of this hill. So Austria has now taken command of the hill. France is moving down off of the sunken road down into the valley below, which is leaving my Austrian ally available to take out this rocket troop if he chooses. He's being a little hesitant, and I think that's because he's worried about skirmishers hiding in the trees. But France did not bring any skirmishers, any long-range infantry units to the battle. So this is going to be a critical error, in my opinion, on part of the French. And the Austrians are going to further move their cavalry forces off to the right. Like I mentioned before, I think he's scouting out this side of the battlefield to see if France has any other troops hidden and waiting for potentially setting up an ambush, because this could be a really good ambush opportunity. France is pulling away his line infantry away from the artillery, drawing in the Austrian cavalry, but there could be units hiding here in the tree line, so we'll wait and see. But as the Austrians come into view, it doesn't look like that's the case, and we are going to see the first confrontation on the field of battle. Austria moving in with his dragoons, and they are going to come up over the crest of this little ridge and knock out the French rocket troops. A very big win, early win for Austria, and a huge loss for France. And there they go. France recognizes his blunder. He is going to send up his old guard to contain the situation. They're going to try and hike back up this road, but running down off the road to pushing their way back up on this terrain is going to be really tiring for the French player. So this was a big strategic error on part of the French by moving his troops completely off of this hill. And he's going to set up in column formation, try and take hot shots off of the cavalry unit as they are engaging further with the French rocket troops. They have completely broken the French rocket troop. They're going to pull back. They are not going to mess with the French old guard. Like I mentioned before, they're a very elite unit. You do not want to get caught in a melee fight with the old guard. They are some of the most lethal units to bring to the battlefield. You do not want to get caught in there unless you have the element of numbers on your side. So I'm not entirely sure why he's continuing to push his old guard up onto this hill. There we go. Okay, so he's going to move them off. Recognizing his error, he is going to maneuver his old guard units off of the hill entirely, surrendering complete control and dominance of this hill to my Austrian ally. And this is already off to a very awkward start for the Prussians and the French, as they are completely unorganized down at the bottom of the hill. They have time to get themselves set up, and we can already see that Prussia is engaging in measures to deflect any cavalry forces that might engage here on the open field. They're going to go and they're going to hide in the ankle-high grass away from view of the Prussians and the Austrians on our side. Very, very confusing mess here in the center. Prussia diverting his entire force off to the left. I would imagine to deal with the Austrians up on top of this hill. Like I mentioned before, it's going to take a long time for my forces to get online. So this provides Prussia and France the opportunity to double team Austria while they're on top of this hill, but they are going to remain down here in the valley and choose to wait for the Austrians to arrive, to come to them. Austria already setting up his skirmishers, doing a really good job at taking out bits and pieces in piecemeal of the French old guard. So recognizing that blunder there, he is going to depart from the hill entirely. Already, look at that. Just that one little awkward positioning, and he lost 20 men in that old guard regiment. So France is off to a very shaky start here in this battle. Now we do have the Prussian artillery and the French rocket troops returning fire, trying to drive the Austrians off of this hill. I'm not sure where. Oh, there we go. So Prussia concentrating all of his artillery fire towards the Austrian element that is on this hill. Very good idea, especially since his troops are exposed beneath the crest of this hill here. That is going to provide very easy pickings for the Prussian artillery in returning fire to the Austrian element. So we're going to watch them for a little bit as they shoot off volleys to the hill. Austria may need to press his advantage while he's got it, now that he has command of the hill. But again, you don't really want to act too quickly or too aggressively until your ally comes online. Take a look here. I am just now beginning to get my troops in deployment. However, we are scattered all over the map. Like I mentioned before, in battles like these, when you have these geographical barriers in between you and your ally, really leaves it up to your to the ally that is dealing with the enemy here on this side to contain the situation until reinforcements arrive. We are moving up, but we are moving slowly. Some of my guys are a little bit tired. These guys are fresh, but we are taking a little bit longer than we wanted to in getting my troops into position to add pressure to the significantly weaker right flank of the Prussian and French alliance, as he has maneuvered all of his troops off to his left. We are getting our artillery set up into position. It is going to take a little while. One thing to note here is terrain awareness, situational awareness in regards to terrain, because if I were to set up my artillery right here, you have this little ridge that's in the way of really any targets that my artillery can pick out. So it is going to be, and that was close, so it is going to be up to me to get my artillery into the best position possible to rain down havoc on the Prussians and the French. Now we are moving our skirmishers closer. We are going to deploy stakes. This is a good position to set up our artillery. Again, much like the Prussians on the opposing side, we are going to deploy stakes here to deter any cavalry advancement against our center position, where I'm going to deploy one battery of 6-pounder horse artillery to begin raining down some suppression fire on top of the Prussian position on the center. Austria taking his time, maneuvering onto the top of this hill. Again, very good positioning on part of the Austrian player. This was a big mistake on part of the French. If I were the French, I would have deployed my forces closer to the road. He had the advantage of taking the hill before the Austrians did, but he completely gave it up. So now Austria is going to be at the luxury of deploying his artillery to rain down, again, havoc on top of the Prussians and the French down in the sunken valley. Now, France and Prussia do have the artillery advantage. They brought more guns to the battlefield than my Austrian ally and myself combined. So this is going to be an interesting artillery duel between us. However, I do believe that, and I still hold true to the belief that if you have command of the high ground, then no matter how much artillery you bring to the battlefield, you are already at a disadvantage if you are the forces that gave up the elevated terrain. So right now we are at a stalemate while our troops get lined up into position. Taking fire from Prussian rounds from their 12-pounder artillery. Another note about situational awareness and tactics is understanding that you have the freedom and the ability to use pretty much any element of the terrain to your advantage. So one of the things that I noticed here while deploying in this very good position was the location of the town. These buildings offer very good cover from artillery fire, so I am going to deploy 2 regiments of musketeers into this town to provide cover from suppression fire from the artillery units that Prussia and the French player have brought to the battlefield. You can already see as I'm going to open up the tactics tab, a lot of my troops are going to get set up here. We have skirmishers moving forward into inching closer to the Prussian lines. Again, protected also by our stakes that we've deployed in front of the Prussian artillery. And we have now returned fire to that nasty Prussian 12-pounder contingent. However, he does have the advantage of the longer guns, which puts my entire force in range. These skid marks that you see on the battlefield here are from the Prussian artillery. So while we have good positioning, myself and my Austrian ally, we don't have the luxury to just sit and wait here much longer out on this open field, as his artillery is on a much more elevated terrain than my own troops. Way off in the distance here, hidden in that smog, but they are in a very good position. The French have redirected their rockets to return fire against my lonely Prussian battery that's down here, exposed really in the middle of this field. My Austrian ally getting his troops set up in position, returning fire from his batteries now on top of the hill, and that howitzer is going to deliver some nasty blows to the French position down here in the valley. The French are very stacked up here, and this is what I thought was the beginning of the turning of the tide of the battle in our favor. The positioning of the French right here is just absolutely atrocious. He's got 2 units stacked up here on top of one another. Yeah, they are National Guards, so I guess you could throw them away if you wanted to. You could use them as cannon fodder. But also he's got his elites set up down here as well. His Grenadiers and his Young Guard. This is a very juicy target. If I were the Austrian player, I would be targeting these guys heavily right now. And take out as many men as I can before I send in my line troops to engage. And look at that. An Austrian player already noticed. It's like my ally knew what was going on, even though he already played this game. So yeah, targeting this ugly blob of troops right here. Very juicy target for the artillery batteries that are on top of that hill. And he is going to rain down fire and brimstone. I don't know. Those are the first words that came to my mind. He's going to wreak havoc on the French position. Prussia still doing a very good job redirecting his artillery fire in 2 directions, focusing on the Prussians on their right and the Austrians on their left, trying to do their best to drive off the Austrians off top of this hill. But that is only successful if you're pushing with infantry support. Right now, he's pulling his men back. And I would imagine that he's holding here, down here on the side. Oh, we got a cap charge. So we have 2 units of the Hussars moving into the fray. And I believe he is going, yep, he's going to go for my skirmishers, which are a little bit out of position right now. Now, he is a ways off, but I don't think I noticed this. So my skirmishers are in a little bit of an exposed position, so we are going to see if I notice them, and I don't. They will return fire, and the Prussians already have themselves caught in an awkward crossfire, but they may make it. They may make it right to my Jaegers and knock them out of the battle. If they do, this is going to be a very important win for Prussia, and there they go, charging into the fray. They are depleted, but he's got 1 more unit of Hussars moving up into the fray and try and counter the loss that has already occurred with his Prussian Hussars. My Jaegers, noticing now that they're in a very bad position, we're going to pull them back, try and get them out of that ugly position right there. And Prussia's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. He's going to drive forward and try and take out my other unit of Jaegers. Maybe. He's going to walk them, but noticing the problem that is occurring here, I'm going to dispatch my Lancers to try and box the Prussian Hussars in. But the Prussian enemy, he is going to continue riding forward right into the stakes to try and take out these guys. They are now in range of the line infantry, and they are going to get cut to shreds as they impale themselves on these stakes. And oh my God, with the rockets coming in, it is chaos in the ranks with the Prussian Hussars, and they are going to break just before they can make it to my artillery. Very costly charge on part of the Prussian opponent here. We did have a little bit of a oops moment here. We did take out some of my guys to friendly fire. Again, notice the problem with double stacking. Now I'm going to chase down these guys with my Uhlans. However, now I'm going to commit the same mistake that my Prussian opponent made. As I'm chasing down the Prussian Hussars, I get caught in the middle of their same kind of crossfire with the Prussian Jaegers. So my guys are now going to take a very nasty blow on the battlefield, and they are going to lose a significant amount of casualties. Well, I guess gain a significant amount of casualties from that awkward maneuvering. So in a way, we kind of even the odds a little bit. He lost his cavalry, and I lost a significant number of mine. And meanwhile, I still think that the Prussian player has yep, there they are, 2 units of cav, of light cav in this game. So really the odds have been evened, and neither side has really come out on top. A very good choice, a good idea on part of our Prussian opponent. However, was it worth it charging in towards the artillery? As you can see, those stakes did a nasty, dirty blow to the Prussian Hussars. And if I were the Prussian player, I would have pulled back from that charge, because the Jaegers were definitely out of position. But going for the artillery, surrounded by all of this line infantry, a little bit of a mistake in my opinion. But sometimes it's really easy to do when you're in these battles, as you're microing. Well, you can't micro heavy. So when you're macroing a lot of your troops like this, you don't notice the smaller elements on the battlefield. Again, another important note about situational awareness on the field of battle. So like I mentioned before about using the terrain to your advantage, I have taken up position in this town to shield my guys from the Prussian artillery fire. So far, there hasn't been much of any sort of action on this side, but the buildings do offer really good cover in the event that the Prussian artillery tries to focus his attention towards my units. They are barricaded by the buildings here in this town. So take advantage of the terrain while you have it. France continuing to redeploy units of his National Guard, and I believe to the right flank to answer the large Prussian contingent, my units that are moving steadily and steadily creeping over onto their far right. Prussia does have a really good flank position right here with his units of cavalry and 1 unit of musketeers, and as we just saw, the Prussian Jaegers are hidden in the blades of grass down here right behind these stakes. So they are going to notice this and they are going to redeploy their forces. Prussian enemy continuing to redirect his artillery, focusing on both now the Austrians on top of the hill and myself, my army, down in the sunken meadow just beneath the hill. France still a little bit unorganized right here. This is a little bit embarrassing on part of the French player. He's lost a lot of troops already to the Austrian howitzers, and they're going to continue to lose troops. I mean, look at the carnage right here. The shots have not been fired here on this side of the battlefield. This is all as a result of the Austrian artillery. My ally Chris doing a very good job at taking care of business on this side without taking many casualties of his own. He has lost a couple men due to the horrendous barrage of rockets and artillery from the Prussian player. However, he is in a much healthier position in terms of numbers than the French and the Prussians. And that's all thanks to his positioning on this side of the hill. Now, I have gotten 1 unit of horse artillery lined up here in junction with the Austrian artillery, so we are going to join with them, returning fire to that menacing Prussian 12-pounder battery contingent that's off on the opposite side of the battlefield. Oh, and the French are getting cut to pieces. This is a disaster. A very critical mistake early on, like I mentioned before. Leaving that hill, this is where the French started out at the beginning of the battle. Right up there where the Austrians are concentrated on that road now. Giving that up and heading down to the bottom ravine here, this is going to be critical. Very critical mistake. French player a little bit out of position, marching his troops into this forested region. My Jaegers are noticing this and they are going to return fire. And I don't think he notices that he's getting picked off this way. All right, there he goes. He's going to maneuver back behind the safety of his stakes and the Prussian skirmishers that are continuing to hide in the blades of grass. France amassing a little bit more of a cavalry unit. But God, look at these guys. They've been cut to shreds. And again, that's all thanks to the Austrian artillery. I'm going to keep peppering at the notion that the artillery position of the Austrians on top of this hill is a game changer in this battle. And look at how many men he's continuing to lose. No real action here in the center right now. Only shots that have been traded on the center and the left have just been skirmishing fire. We are going to creep up a little bit more onto the Prussian position, noticing now that the French and the Prussians are a little bit unorganized on the left here. We are going to maneuver our guys out of the town and into this tree line here to begin our push to try and drive the Prussians and the French back off of this side of the battlefield, thereby giving my Austrian ally the luxury of pushing down into this field. He has left this corridor wide open, and already the Austrian player is going to take note of this, and he is going to move his troops further and further down the hillside and begin the push to maneuver into this road and push the Prussians. Really only 2 lines that are holding off this entire Austrian column moving down the hillside. if I were these guys, I would have ran long time ago. And here we go. The skirmishing battle continues to mount. Look at the crackle of the muskets there. Absolutely gorgeous. France going heavy on my flank maneuver on the left. Again, taking note about deployments of your troops. This is okay, I guess. However, he is maneuvering his troops in this really awkward square formation, making very easy targets for my Prussian skirmishers before my line troops can even get into the action. We're going to bring our guys into the middle of the action here. The line infantry, we've done everything that we need to do with the skirmishers. Now we are going to bring up the line infantry contingent to deal with the head-on French advance. We're going to get a gorgeous volley off with my lancers emerging from the smoke. Look at this. Oh, how gorgeous this is. We are going to drive right into the French voltigeurs. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess so the French did bring a unit of line infantry. And the French are out of position here. These two regiments of National Guard right here. They are going to pull back. Prussian opponent continuing to return fire with my skirmishers here. However, that's not where the focus of attention is. The focus of attention is going to be here on the far right, with the Austrian contingent moving in to meet the Prussian force that's hiding here on the left. He has brought up more troops to defend this weak left flank, so that's very good on part of the Prussian player. However, over here on the right, the French and the Prussians have actually completely swapped sides here. The Prussians are now on the left, and the French are holding the right, with the Prussian skirmishers in advance on both the left and the center. Now he is going to get some nice pot shots off of my cavalry, so we're going to get those guys out of the fray here, and we are going to begin the immediate push to enter into this tree line and push the French back out of this position of the meadow and push them back up the hill from whence they came. Austria looking very mean and disturbing coming down off of this hill, and pretty soon they are going to engage the main body of the Prussian force here in the center and on the far right. Grenzer is returning fire, and already look at this. The Prussians are at red morale. They are losing men. They are dropping like flies, and already a unit breaks. So now the Prussians are going to have the dilemma of stretching their forces thin. Is he going to continue to push up this hill, or is he going to pull back? If I were the Prussian opponent, I would pull back. There is no way that I would want to engage these many Austrians on this downward slope. But Prussia is going to go in all for the fatherland, and they are going to try and push the Austrians back up this hill. Might be a little bit of a costly maneuver. I'm thinking about the Battle of Little Round Top right now.
Sir, our general is under attack.
Look at this. Oh, we got a cav charge. Prussia and France going all in, trying to drive a wedge into the Austrian lines. Will the Austrian player see it? Will he form square, or is he going to meet them with a nasty volley of rifle fire? Austrian player forming square to drive off the French and the Prussian cavalry push. Actually, Austria didn't see the cavalry push yet. Cavalry a little weak though. This charge is going to be futile. There we go. The Prussian cav has been shattered, and the French cav are now caught in this awkward crossfire between the two Austrian squares. If I were him, I'd get my cav out of there and reserve them for later. Let's take a look at the rest of the battle. Again, nothing more than a skirmish here on this side right now. We are still staring down the French advance. France getting themselves a little bit more organized right now. However, he's got some units that are crisscrossing each other. If I were the French player, I would straighten out my lines, form up along the Prussian Jaegers, form along the Prussian Jaegers here down on the center, and draw out a long line here, because right now I only have a few Prussian units that are a part of this flank maneuver. But when you're clumped up like this, it's really easy for just 2 or 3 regiments of line infantry to push back this entire column, especially when they begin to open fire, because they are stacked up heavy on top of one another. Some of these guys are even facing the wrong way. Look at this, his old guard. His old guard are facing in the wrong direction. They're more worried about the Austrians pushing down on the hill than the Prussians moving out of the town. My Prussian opponent going to maneuver his light infantry into a better position to get the drop on my line infantry. However, he brought them a little too close. My lines are going to return fire here before the Prussians can get off a shot. And the Austrians going in for a cav charge, going for the rocket troop. They are going to take out that rocket troop and silence them. Prussia does have a unit of musketeers that he's going to bring into the fray, try and salvage the situation, but it is not going to be enough. The Austrian cav force going in heavy, silencing this rocket troop. This is a very critical win here for the Austrians, and the Prussians are outclassed here. The line battle is atrocious right now. The Austrians continuing to box in the Prussians, and they are going to get a very good position on these Prussians that are entirely out of position here in the middle of this firefight. Look at the smoke. This is another one of the things that I really enjoy about this game. If you're all about historical immersion, I can't think of a better game. I really can't. Napoleon Total War is one of my favorite games. I've been playing it for 10 years. Really enjoy this time period and just the battlefield tactics. I know we don't fight war like this anymore, but think how cool this is. It would have been. It wouldn't have been cool. I wouldn't want to be in this, but really cool just to be a bird flying over a battle like this and watching these lines duke it out in old-style gentlemanly fashion. And the Austrians continuing to push the cav behind the Prussian lines, and they are going to move into the backs of the Prussian army. And they are going to drive them out of the battle once and for all. The Lancers moving in to take out these Jaegers that have returned from the fight, and it is utter chaos here on the Prussian left. The Prussians and the French are completely outflanked. The Austrians have a very good drop on the artillery, continuing to return fire. In fact, I think they shot their own cavalry unit, but that's okay. They've already got the Prussians on the run over here. France being very conservative about making any sort of push on this side. Noticing the collapse, the complete collapse. The Prussians have completely routed from this side of the battlefield. If I were France, I would make the push immediately because most of my forces still are concentrated over here on this meadow. We only have a few units that are the flanking contingent that are going to be maneuvering up on this side. They have the numbers to their advantage. We are going to return fire to the National Guard that is going to be bravely assuming the front of this fight. He is going to maneuver his old guard. They're going to walk up bravely into the face of the Prussian Musketeers, and they are going to return fire in French fashion. They'll run, but they'll run later. French Voltigeurs walking danger close to my foot guard. They are going to get shot point blank. I think he meant to go in for a bayonet charge here, but it's very easy not to run your guys or think you got your guys running when you don't. And they are going to break upon just touching the foot guards. Very disorganized mess here on the French right. Old Guard will return fire, but they are badly outpositioned here. Their left flank completely exposed to the Prussian Musketeers, and are going to put some mean shots into the sides of this Prussian Old Guard regiment, French Old Guard regiment. Again, poor tactics and decisions. They are clumped up here, ugly fashion. This is horrible. Now France going to commit his unit of dragoons, his general actually, he's going to send his general to try and salvage the mess that his infantry have left behind. And my guys will not notice the charge in time, and they are going to get peppered. Oh, there goes a guy, look at this guy. Some very good drop on part of the French player. Charging right into my line right here in the center, and now that he has this push, that he has this significant breakthrough, push all of your units to furl up my flank. These guys have taken a significant amount of casualties. He can push a bunch of units around to the left and furl up my flank, but he is going to pull his general's unit out of the fray. I guess my guys did get into some sort of square, but oh, this is a mess right here, an absolute mess. The French are in complete chaotic retreat right now. on part of the cavalry. The Prussians sending up some units of line infantry and to try and contain the situation. Oh, actually, okay, all right, so this is what I'm talking about here. The confusion in the ranks. So I'm playing as Prussia, and one of our opponents is playing as Prussia. These are my guys that I've deployed in, yeah, okay. So my guys have now moved up. These were the guys that were hanging back behind my 6-pounder horse artillery. They're now going to move up into the center of this battlefield and get the drop on the exposed French player who's really trying to contain the madness.
Men are running, sir.
He is going to pull back his fusiliers of the line, noticing that his flank is exposed and his Prussian ally has been decimated on the far left. So he is going to pull his men back, and just like that, folks, the French are in a mad retreat, pulling back to the safety of his artillery and his general's unit that's hanging in the back. And the carnage here is just incredible. Suffering little to no casualties on part of the Austrian player. Like I mentioned before, taking command of this hill early in the game, establishing and putting up your artillery here on this position, on this hilltop position, is going to do an enormous amount of wonder for your side as you rain down iron on top of the enemy. And this is part of the reason why the Prussians crumbled so quickly, because his ally did not make any effort to take command of this massive hill. The only losses that the Austrians took up here were the fact that the French player had his rocket troops down here in the beginning of the game, and there are only a few amounts of dead up here on this hill. And the rest of the casualties that were delivered were on part of the Prussians and the French here, just sitting here, soaking in all that artillery barrage. So, again, note to self later on in another game when you're playing in this map, or really in any map rather, take command of the hill. Take command of the hill, and this could have been an entirely different battle, because you would have forced my guys to oppress the issue. The Austrians over here on our far right, and myself moving out of the town, we would have had to have set up a defensive position really in this flat ground that much like the French and the Prussians are doing here now. So the French are going to pull back, and they're going to set up a secondary defensive position here on this mound right here, holding out in hopes that the Austrians and the Prussians will be pushed back by this menacing 12-pounder artillery that they have brought to the battlefield. And they are tough. These guys are tough to beat. You don't want to line your troops up too close, because the artillery can go into canister shot, and that can deliver some serious blows to any line infantry unit that is clumped up, much like our guys are here right now. You want to charge artillery with cavalry. You don't really want to go head-to-head with artillery units. However, right now, the French and the Prussians aren't really in a good position to answer the Austrian advance on the left and the Prussians on the right. They need to get their act together, and they need to form up really quickly. He's got some good positioning. He's got his Jaegers set up here right in front of his artillery, so that's going to deter any line infantry advance within this section. However, the Austrians are noticing the positioning of the French and the Prussians, so they are going to divert their forces to try and circumnavigate, get in this road and come in from behind. He's got his general exposed here on the left. This could be a good win. If he can take out Blücher, the Prussian general here on the far left, then this could be a very quick and easy win for the Austrians and myself as the Prussians. We're continuing to press the issue with our skirmishers, moving them up a little bit closer to try and get some shots off on the retreating French. And my guys are taking their time. There's really no need to rush up this hill. While they're disorganized, yes, you could make a push, but why rush and hurry and exhaust your troops when you can, again, pepper these guys with the artillery position that you have on top of the hill? Just let them soak in all of these cannonballs. Now the Prussians have limbered up their artillery. I believe they're going to try and put their artillery units on a much higher, better vantage position to try and get a better firing position down on the Austrians and on the Prussians. because this is kind of awkward. You really don't want your artillery this close to your men. If you're crossing your lines, much like the French are doing right here, one blast from your artillery unit could wreck your own line. But look at this. They are still continuing to get hit. Oh, there goes a horse. They're still continuing to get hit by the Austrian and the Prussian artillery that's set up on the top of this hill. So this was a very good spot for the artillery throughout this entire game, and it has caused complete chaos among the French and the Prussian ranks. France setting up their final line positions here on this mound, and the line battle has resumed here in the center. 2 regiments of Prussian Musketeers taking on National Guard, who are a little bit out of position right now, attempting to return fire, but they have the terrain in front of them right now. This is going to be a little bit of a problem for the French player. I'd pull these guys back just a little bit more, try and get a better position on the Prussians as they come up over the crest of this ridge. And we are boxing in the remnants of the Prussian-French alliance. Gorgeous musket fire. The Austrians continuing to circumnavigate the entire French position on the far left, really closing in. I can't get over the looks of this mini-map here. The French and Prussians are surrounded. If I were them, I'd just surrender. But they are going to fight valiantly to the end. My Austrian ally now getting his Landesschützen in position. Really good position to take on the National Guard and the Fusiliers that are set up here in the center. And the French National Guard here are taking way too many shots, and they are getting considerably weakened, and they are going to rout here pretty quickly. France and Prussia both in contingent meeting this Prussian move on their far right flank. Good volleys, good volleys. France, oh, France, why, dude? Why? So France is left open, leaving this position that he had here on the left. Did he not see the Austrians coming around from behind? He's going to maneuver more troops out of his left flank to try and meet the Prussian force moving in on his far right. And this was the beginning of the moment of the battle where I began to think I thought that they were out of position from the get-go, but this was the beginning of the Austrian push up over this hillside, and where we basically said, all right, let's close the door on this battle. So the Austrians are going to swing wide, and they are going to bring themselves within good range of the French and the Prussians that are really kind of clumped up here. The Prussians have reestablished their artillery units here on this side, but again, they have the terrain in their way. This isn't going to do anything. They have the hill in here, and they're just shooting themselves. They're shooting into the dirt. France maneuvering up here to try and meet the Austrian advance, but they're going to get cut down by mean volleys of musket fire. And it is utter disaster for the French and the Prussians. What an absolute mess. The line battle is a little bit more organized here on this side. Prussia doing a good job at meeting the Prussian advance. The Prussian Civil War happening here in the thicket. No civil war here for the French. It's just madness and confusion. Incompetence. Napoleon would be extremely displeased by this performance. And the Austrians are going to move up with another cav assault and drive into this blob of French troops. What a mess. The French are going to run again. They're just turning their backs this time. They're going to turn their backs, and they're going to meet the approaching Austrians and Prussians on this side. Never mind the big Austrian cav contingent that's right behind them. Oh, what do we have here? The Prussian general, Blücher, going in for the charge, trying to drive through a hole on this Austrian regiment right here. What an honorable man. There he is, von Blücher himself. Very reckless of the Prussian general, but at this point the battle's over. France going to send in his general, his dragoon guards, to drive through a hole in the Austrian push on their far left. France holding out with the Fusiliers of the line, bravely fighting off the Prussian and the Austrian push in the center. The young guards still really haven't not seen any action here. They're just running around a little bit confused. France now redeploying his troops on the far left to meet the Austrian advance. What a wasted opportunity. Should have kept them there, and this battle could have turned out to be very differently. We are still continuing to deliver a crippling blow to the Prussians on the far right flank, adding a little bit more pressure here on this side, just to box the French in entirely. Blücher still fighting it out, and we lost a general. And I think it was Razum's. Okay, we lost both generals. All right, so both generals have now fallen. Blücher has fallen, and the French general has fallen. So now both armies are without their general, and that is going to be it for the French and the Prussians. And already you can see how that does a considerable morale hit on part of the French and the Prussians. And this battle, folks, is in the bag.
Victory, sir. It's soon to be yours.
A glorious victory indeed. Continuing to get peppered by the Austrian artillery on top of the hill. The French are nearly done, but they're going to put up a valiant last stand here in the center of this hill. Prussia has been demolished. Rest in peace, Fiefman. The Austrians going in for the kill. The final French units that are here on this mound, boxed in entirely, and all the white French flags here on the battlefield. No pun intended. Not to nag the French, but this battle is over. Look at this. Complete mess. So very good game to all who played. Chris as the Austrians, H. Valkova as the French, and Razumzar as the opposing Prussian army. I really enjoy this battle, so thank you all for playing. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning into the channel. This is now the third video, Napoleon Total War online commentary video. I'm really liking this. So, and thank you all for the feedback on the last two videos. The second video, we fixed the frame issue, but then we had a sound engineering issue. So I went back in, tweaked a little bit of the volume settings. So let me know in the comments if the sound was a little bit more bearable on this time around. I'm really enjoying this. This is just a fun side hobby that I do in my downtime. So thank you all for watching. And until then, I will see you in the next one.